All right. Hello, I'm Emiko Maraki, a PhD student at the University of Calgary. And as part of the CSBBCS Meet the Researcher series, I'll be interviewing Dr. Brendan Jones. Dr. Jones runs the McGill Cognitive Computing Laboratory at McGill University. He is an associate editor of behavior research methods and was also the recipient of the CSBBCS and CPA Best Article of the Year award in 2015. He previously held positions at the University of Buffalo, Queen's University, and Indiana University. And his research interests are in big data and machine learning approaches to cognitive science. So welcome, Dr. Johns. I'm really looking forward to hearing a bit more about your research. To start with,
Great.
maybe you can tell us a bit about your background, sort of where you studied for your undergraduate and graduate degrees, and also how you decided to focus on the particular area of cognitive and behavioral science that you do your research in.
All right. Well, thanks very much for inviting me. I'm always happy to be involved with CSBBCS in any way I can. So I did my undergraduate degree at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario. My degree is a Bachelor of Computing with a specialization in cognitive science, which essentially is a computer science degree with like 25% of psychology courses. At that time, it was a relatively new type of degree, but these days that's more common. And then I did my PhD at Indiana University under the direction of Dr. Michael Jones, who's another Canadian. And so my PhD is in psychological and brain sciences and cognitive science. And I decided to do my PhD at Indiana because it's well known for being a center of computational cognitive science work with people like Richard Schifrin and Rob Nosofsky and many others, which was a great experience and really kind of led me to where I am today. And then, so I spent a year as a postdoc in Indiana after completing my PhD, working with Richard Schifrin, finishing up some projects I had going on there. And then I got an NSERC PDF to go back to Queens, where I worked with Dr. Douglas Muhort for 2 years, which was a really great experience to have self-funded direction in your postdoc. And then I became an assistant professor at Buffalo, cross-appointed to like 3 different departments. And then I've been at McGill, which has been fantastic for about a year and a half now. So like most academics, a little bit of a long-winded pathway to getting to where I wanted to be.
Excellent. And what was it that drew you to your particular area using big data and machine learning to look at questions in cognitive science?
So I remember in my first year cognitive science course, way back in 2007 now, being introduced to the model latent semantic analysis, which by Landau and Dumais in 1997, which is a really fantastic paper. And so this paper sort of blew me away that people in cognitive science were really starting to grapple with sort of the nature of knowledge and how we can derive knowledge from environmental experience. And it so happened that while I was at Queen's, Doug Muhort, who was my undergraduate supervisor as well as my postdoc supervisor, was working with Mike Jones, my eventual PhD advisor, on the Beagle model of semantics. And so I got involved with undergraduate research with Doug, and it sort of evolved from there. And that now I spend 10 hours a day working on these problems.
Fantastic. So it strikes me that you maybe have a unique skill set that not necessarily the typical undergraduate or even graduate student in psychology possesses. So I'm wondering if you could tell me a bit about the skill set that is required for the kind of work that you do, and how you develop this expertise, and how you give direction to graduate students who are coming into your lab and how they can further their skills in this area.
Yeah, so So doing a undergrad in computer science has definitely helped me in many areas of my research. And so I am good at programming, but I can also do these kind of, I'm used to doing these big data kind of analyses where you need to program things in parallel and maintain very large matrices in memory and so on, which requires sort of more advanced programming skills. But I think one of the issues with some of the sort of technical things that are rising in our field at the moment is that we've lost a little bit of some of the expertise that we've developed in the history of our field, which has a great history of developing really sound methodology. And so I don't, for students who are interested in working with me, I don't require any programming experience or anything. I'm a psychologist and I'm interested in fundamental psychological questions. So a lot of students just do pure empirical research that's sort of tied together with this sort of advanced computational research. But these days, for most things, there's really wonderful software packages that have emerged even in just the last 5 years, especially in machine learning in Python that allows sort of almost anybody to spend a week and get a model running, and they can do some interesting things. I think there's some dangers there where people are using models they don't completely understand, which can lead to some problematic research. But um, I think these days doing the kind of large scale computational work is much more accessible than it was when I started out in this field.
Excellent. And it sounds, I guess, then that you really have an emphasis on sort of the making sure the research questions and the methods are solid, and that you can use tools like machine learning and like working with big data to get at the questions that you want.
Yeah, I still think that we have to be sound theoreticians and ground everything in cognitive theory. From my own perspective, what I think the really intriguing aspect of kind of the machine learning aspect of cognition is that we can embed models with like realistic levels of experience that kind of scale up to what an average human adult might have experienced in their lifetime, especially in terms of language processing. And so that allows you to do away with a lot of assumptions that underlie different sort of theoretical frameworks about the nature of language. So we don't have to make those assumptions anymore. We can train a model with that experience so that it's sort of grounded in cognitive realism in some way.
Fantastic. And I think maybe that leads nicely into my last question for you. And that's really around in your field, what do you see as the key challenges? Or maybe a better way to frame that would be the key opportunities. And is there anything that if you could sort of magically improve one aspect of your area of research, what would that area be?
So I think right now, actually, there's a wide range of challenges for doing this sort of advanced computational work. One is that it's relatively new, and so we're still sort of grappling with the right way of training models, and how do we deal with models of different complexity. I think one of the real major challenges actually is in how do we assess sort of the parsimony of machine learning frameworks. So like GPT-2 or whatever is the current thing has like 20 billion parameters or something. And so it's becoming more and more common for cognitive science researchers to use models like that in their own research. And so there's a temptation to use that as a motivation for theoretical development, which I think is a little bit questionable because it's impossible to understand that model because we can't understand 20 billion parameters. Um, and so this idea of complexity, which had a good basis in model comparison for a long time, like using AICs and BICs and so forth, doesn't really apply to these models anymore, nor does even parameter space really apply. And so having an understanding of parsimony and in the development of these large scale models is it's a major challenge, and one that likely doesn't have any easy solution. It will just take sort of our field becoming more aware of some of the complications that emerge in this type of work. And then if I could snap my finger and magically improve something, it would definitely be like data availability from things like Twitter and Facebook and so on, where social media is such an important and a common aspect of our life now, that having access to data about how humans are interacting on those in those ways is, I think, really important, and academic research has really been blocked from those types of data streams. So I think as somebody who deals with like big data and machine learning, having more data is always the thing that I'm looking for.
Excellent. So not necessarily small challenges, but important ones to be aware of nonetheless.
Yeah,
Great. Well,
sure.
thank you so much for your time today. Certainly hope that we get the chance to meet in person eventually, maybe at a BBCS meeting sometime down the road.
Hopefully. Thank you.